Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth.
Well, greetings, friends, and welcome to this February 17, 2014 edition of Nightcast. Friends, in tonight's news, it relates to Italy, and it is the biggest story of the night. You know, last night we told you how the current prime minister was resigning. Already, Italy's President Giorgio Napolitano has asked Matteo Renzi, the mayor of Florence, to form a new government.
Italy is betting its future on this man. He's young and he bristles with energy and ambition. Today he drove himself to the presidential palace in Rome. He is 39 years old and is set to become Italy's youngest prime minister. Matteo Renzi is not even an MP. He's the mayor of Florence with no experience in government. Now he is tasked with running Italy.
I would
like to assure the President of the Republic, the political parties, and above all the Italians who are watching this government crisis, that I will devote all the courage, energy and enthusiasm that I am capable of.
He reeled off an ambitious agenda: constitutional reform before the end of the month, jobs reform by March. So power is passing to a political outsider, a man who promises to break the old political caste of Italian politics. His lack of political experience is part of his appeal to many Italians. Matteo Renzi's power lies in his being different. Some are calling him Italy's Tony Blair, a centre-left politician with little time for ideology. He has an easy smile, he winks, he charms, but in truth, he's a political unknown.
He has no alternative but challenging the situation. I'm not sure that he knows how difficult the situation is.
Today there was a small protest that yet again Italy was turning to an unelected prime minister who had pledged to seek power via an election, but instead engineered the removal of a serving prime minister.
He has unbridled ambition. I see it as being for personal gain and not something that will help everyone.
Matteo Renzi says he can move seas and mountains. Let's try him, because Italy is in a swamp.
Matteo Renzi is expected to move into the Prime Minister's office later this week. He faces an immense challenge in a country struggling out of recession with youth unemployment at 40%. Gavin Hewitt, BBC News, Rome.
Thank you, Gavin Hewitt. And friends, as you heard Gavin Hewitt pronounce it, that new Prime Minister, let's see, how did he pronounce that name? He pronounced it Mr. Renzi. And he could, he's never been elected as an MP, as the story brought out, and he must negotiate a deal with Mr. Letta's former coalition partners, but he could be sworn in as early as Thursday of this week. And friends, stay with us, because the story coming up after I want to read something to you will relate to the Sinai, relates to both Egypt and Israel, and relates to travel. And if some of you have feast plans over in the Middle East, you better pay attention to that story when it comes up after this one that I'm just going to read you. And it relates, this next story relates to, it mentions Nazi Germany. And it's interesting to me, and I hope you take notice of this too, that so many news stories today make reference back to World War II, even World War I, some of them, and Nazi Germany. And yet, Germany is allowed to develop a military now. France, Brother Reuben, has no hesitation to make a new Franco-German alliance after having done that so many times in the past, and each time, Germany stabbing Brother Reuben, France, in the back. And yet, we ignore the fact that Germany made unconditional surrender at World War II. It was the world's great enemy, and today we call it an ally. The four allies that beat Germany and got its unconditional surrender should continue today to have every right to be monitoring any communication coming into and out of Germany, including the Chancellor's little private smartphone. You know, I would even go so far as to say, I'm just speaking carnally and secularly, friends, I would go so far as to say, from a secular point of view, and then we'll turn to the biblical point of view in a moment, I would say that Germany should have been put under heavy taxation to pay for some of the cost. They cost the four allies, the four Axis powers, to end World War II. They should be repaying that by continuing to be paying taxes today and to be using the United States Yankee dollar. But no, the countries have allowed Germany freedom, removed the wall that Russia had put in there that divided East and West Germany. We didn't even really rightly divide it up into quarters as it should have been. Should have been taxed, should have been held to account such that it could have no military again, ever. Now that's the secular, you might even say carnal, physical point of view. Biblically, God says He uses the Assyrians to punish His nation, Israel. And that doesn't just mean the tribe of Judah or Benjamin or Levi or whoever's in the little state of Israel in the Middle East. That means the entire tribes, all 12 of them, 13 if you count the two half-tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh separately, who stand in the shoes of Joseph. And He's going to use them again to punish Israel, and He'll use them with the fulfillment during the fifth seal, which is the next seal to become active. During that seal, let's just put our slide up here for a moment. This slide shows, this slide of a chart shows the first 6 of 7 seals mentioned in the book of Revelation, these 6 being mentioned in the 6th chapter of Revelation. The first 4 have been active since Jesus Christ, and now they've been accelerating and becoming more and more prolific. And as soon as the trouble of the 4th seal and the much death of that 4th seal accelerates more, we're on the lead-in. We're on the prelude music now to the 5th seal, the Great Tribulation, which is a time when round 3 of World War will be revived. An emperor will be crowned in Frankfurt, Germany, who will revive the old Holy Roman Empire with, you better believe, the Roman Catholic Church will be very involved with that. They'll do the coronation. This time no French emperor will take the crown out of the hands of the Pope. The Pope will indeed ride this beast and place the crown on his head. And this story that I'm going to read a little bit to you, friends, mentions how North Korea, like Nazi Germany, let me read the whole story to you. It's not that long. The international community must act on evidence that crimes against humanity are being committed in North Korea, says a long-awaited UN report. A panel of experts mandated by the UN's Human Rights Council said North Koreans had suffered unspeakable atrocities, and that those responsible, including leader Kim Jong-un, must face justice. The panel heard evidence of torture, political repression, and other crimes. Pyongyang refused to cooperate with the report and rejects its conclusions. John Everard, a former UK ambassador to North Korea between 2006 and 2008, and who later worked for the UN on implementing sanctions against Pyongyang, told Newsnight there were direct parallels between North Korea and Nazi Germany. Friends, the Syria attacks, there's been a deadly bombing that hit an Egypt tour bus. And those of you with any plans to travel in the Middle East, whether now or in the fall for an annual event, should take notice of this bomb attack on a tourist bus in Sinai Peninsula that has killed at least 3 South Korean tourists and an Egyptian driver, officials have said. A number of South Koreans were also hurt in the attack, which came as the bus was preparing to cross into Israel. Here's the report.
These are the moments shortly after a bomb attack on a tourist bus. Plumes of smoke billowed from the site of the explosion. It's not known so far how the attack was carried out, but security sources say it was believed to have been hit by a car bomb or roadside bomb. The bus was traveling from the Sinai Peninsula and it was about to cross into Israel. It is a very popular tourist destination, but the peninsula has become increasingly lawless, especially since President Hosni Mubarak was overthrown in 2011. Ambulances rushing to help those wounded. Out of 33 passengers on the bus, at least 3 South Korean tourists and an Egyptian driver were killed in the blast, with others suffering serious injuries. In Seoul, the Foreign Ministry held an emergency meeting.
I think we must work hard to cooperate closely with the Egyptian side to investigate the accident thoroughly as soon as possible.
No one has so far claimed responsibility for the blast, but it's an area Islamist militants stepped up attacks on security forces in recent months. But what's different about this attack is their target, tourism, which plays a vital role in Egypt's economy. Marika Oy, BBC News.
Thank you. And friends, weather is big in the news and is going to be big in the news. Many journalists have announced this winter as the winter from hell. And we're sure seeing that. Some of the news reports today say that, the winter is going to last longer. You know, we didn't really need Groundhog Day to tell us that. If you simply are following the way God does things, if you follow God's sacred calendar, the Hebrew calendar, instead of the Gregorian Roman calendar that men have made, you'd easily know that, yes, this is going to be a longer winter this year, because if you're following the Hebrew calendar, you would know that this is a leap year, and there's a whole extra month in the year. And God begins the year on the beginning of that Hebrew calendar, and that's when He begins the springtime. So when there's a leap year in the Hebrew calendar, forget the Roman calendar and forget leap years in that only adds 1 extra day on February 29. In God's calendar, 7 years out of 19, when there's a leap year, there's a whole extra month, a whole extra 30 days put into the calendar. The month of Adar becomes Adar 1, and it adds a day, becomes 30 days instead of 29, and then Adar 2, an extra month, the 13th month, has 29 days. So that 30th day on Adar 1 and the 29 days in Adar 2 adds 30 days to the calendar. And in those years, that's when the groundhog sees its shadow, according to tradition, because if they figure it out right, God is going to extend the winter until the first day of the first year when spring occurs. That's, He may allow a little transition time in between that, but that's the way it works, friends. That's the way God does it. God begins the spring on the first day of the first month on the Hebrew calendar. I know some of you may not like that. Some of you may not like some of the things I teach you here on this, but friends, we're instructed, if you're a person who follows what the Bible says do, you pray even for your enemies. And if your enemy or someone you perceive as an enemy or make an enemy, if you feel he's done you wrong and he asks you to forgive him, you need to be willing to do that. How many times? You know, if you were real strict and literal about it, you'd still have to do it 70 times 7. That's a lot of times. And I'm asking any of you who I may in any way have offended by my over casualness, my foolishness, my bumblingness, whatever. Friends, I ask you to forgive me. And, you know, God's given me a role to perform, and perhaps it's right here more than anywhere else. And I appreciate those of you who have let me know that by my willingness to take this seat that I did not originally want to take, I preferred it on the other side of that camera. By my willingness to do this, I hear from many of you that say you appreciate what we spend the day here doing so that you don't have to spend the day looking up these stories we pull out sometimes from the back pages to bring you, to make your job easy. When you get home from work, you just watch. And Christ instructed and told us to be watching. And that's one of the conditions he put if we wanted to be accounted worthy to escape a tribulation, friends, that many brethren are beginning to see and perceive that could happen as early as this year, the way things are moving. I guarantee you, if Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong were alive, he'd be jumping up and down saying it's really soon now, because the things he talked about that would happen are happening much, much more than they were happening when he was alive, when he was thinking it's got to be short. They're happening much more and trigger-like. You can see, it says, Christ told us when you can see the fig tree ripe, that you know that summer's nigh. When you see the mousetrap, you know, it's been eaten, the cheese been eaten on, and the spring's about to go. You know, hey, it's trigger happy now. It could go any time. And that this year, the records as of yesterday's news, the weather records are being broken like never, ever, ever before. And this next story relates to that. The latest U.S. winter weather is on the move.
The Northeast can't catch a break. Another monster storm ravaged the New England coast. It brought some areas more than a foot of snow and whiteout conditions from 50-mile-per-hour winds. About 14,000 homes and businesses lost power. Residents are screaming, enough already.
I hate it. I wish it was done.
This is not the New England of my childhood. It's a cold, harsh, frostbitten awfulness.
For many, cleaning up all that snow is backbreaking, and plows out on the streets can't move fast enough.
I started about an hour ago, and I got another 12 hours ahead of me.
Communities across the country are running out of snow removal money. Portsmouth, New Hampshire has already spent 80% of its winter storm budget, with salt the #1 expense.
We do what are called downtown loadouts, which entails removing snow from the downtown, and each time we do that, that's around a $30,000 effort.
In Milwaukee, crews are now using sand on side streets, trying to conserve what little salt they have left.
If this winter doesn't break, we're going to start running out, and it's kind of a scary situation to go through.
Out west, the problem? Avalanches. 2 more skiers were found dead on Sunday, swept away in this powerful snowslide. Since February 8th, at least 10 people have died in avalanches. The mountain regions of the Northwest are bracing for 7 feet of snow this week, raising the danger of more avalanches. The system that slammed the West is forecast to sweep across the middle of the country and then head east, bringing more snow and ice. Timon Bradley, ABC News, Washington.
Friends, thousands of people in southern England have been warned that floodwaters could rise again today as more heavy rain hits saturated ground.
As the Monday morning commute gets underway, there are signs of hope. Water levels dropped over the weekend along some parts of the River Thames. This is Raisbury, one of the towns being helped by more than 3,000 troops. Another 5,000 are on standby. And whereas Worcester was underwater last week, a break in the bad weather means a big clear-up is now in full swing. The council's trying to remove 500 tonnes of debris washed into the River Severn. The Prime Minister's expected to visit the region later today. The government's also announced an extra £10 million to help small businesses that have been damaged by the floods or lost trade. Windsor in Berkshire is amongst the places reporting a drop in tourist numbers.
Yesterday we closed 3 o'clock. I think we took on £7, and today we haven't opened the till yet.
It's very hard, so I've been sitting for since 8 o'clock. I did 3 jobs,
With nationwide clear-up costs already expected to run into billions, the way money is being spent is being closely scrutinised. On the Somerset levels, water pumps shipped in from the Netherlands have had to be switched off because of damage to the riverbank. It's added to tensions in an area where many already feel that help was too slow to arrive. Forecasters say the weather won't be as intense as it has been in the coming days, but it is still too soon to bid farewell to the rain. Maddie Savage, BBC News.
Friends, a massive snowstorm that has dumped 1.5 meters of snow in some areas of the country has left areas cut off and hundreds of cars and trucks stranded. The storm has killed at least 12 people. That makes it relate on our chart here from Revelation, the seals of Revelation. It makes it relate to the 4th seal, as you see the count 4 over, number 4, depicted in Revelation as a pale horse with a rider whose name is Death, alongside whom rides Hades, hell, the grave. And one of the terms Jesus Christ used in plain language to describe this seal, well, the 3 terms he used was loimos, disease epidemics, pestilences, the plagues of Egypt. He used the term seismus, meaning seismic activity, commotions in the air such as gale force winds of all kinds, commotions on the ground such as earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and tsunamis and floods and fires and so on. And these kind of things, these weather patterns and storms relate to that. So does the 3rd term Jesus Christ used that Mark recorded in Mark 13 verse 8 as terake or terake, meaning troubled waters, both literally and figuratively, and it also figuratively means mobs and seditions. The storm that we'll see in this next video, as I was mentioning, has killed at least 12 people and injured more than 1,000 others. Some areas of the north of the country remain cut off, and troops are helping to dig out hundreds of stranded cars and trucks. And Rupert, when you do a news report, our next reporter, I love announcing you as the reporter for this, because sometimes it is a real mouthful for me to get out correctly. With this report, friends, here is Rupert Wingfield Hayes. Woo, got it, Rupert.
Japan is used to snow, but even here the amounts have been slightly mind-boggling. The snow on this car gives you a little idea of just how much has fallen. Across northern and central Japan, hundreds of lorries remain stranded more than 24 hours after the storm swept through. The army has been steadily digging them out today, but it's very slow work. In Yamanashi Prefecture, west of Tokyo, they got nearly 1.5 meters of snow in just 12 hours. These helicopter shots show people stranded deep in a mountain gorge. They've been there since Saturday. But it's also been a chance for Japan to demonstrate its famous community spirit. These stranded drivers have been taken in and fed by locals who've set up a temporary hostel for them. People have been very kind and really helpful, says this man. And then there has been the baby deer, stuck in deep snow, dug out by hand, and finally free again. The rescue operation is now in full swing, with heavy equipment taking over from shovels. But weather forecasters say more snow is on the way. It could hit as early as Wednesday. Rupert Wingfield Hayes, BBC News, in Tokyo.
Okay, thank you, Rupert Wingfield Hayes. Thank you very much. Friends, I don't know why our brother Ephraim pronounces what it always sounds like to me, the River Thames. When it's spelled T-H-A-M-E-S, to me it sounds like that ought to be Thames, but our brother Ephraim, you tell me if you think I'm getting this wrong, but it sounds like to me he's always saying River Thames. Some areas near the Thames, T-H-A-M-E-S, river are still underwater after more than a week of flooding. BBC's London's Riz Latif has been up in a helicopter to see what the situation is like now.
A new week and clearer skies are welcome relief for the flooded areas in Berkshire and Surrey. But this is a long road to recovery.
It's from the air that you get a real sense of the sheer scale of what flood-hit communities have been dealing with and the task ahead.
When the Thames burst its banks in Chertsey, hundreds were forced to leave their homes. A week on, houses and gardens are still surrounded by water, and these horses stranded by it. It's a similar picture in Staines, fields barely recognisable, and some roads impassable.
Looking at things from up here, you can understand why experts say it'll take weeks, if not months, for the water to clear.
Things have improved thanks to a drier weekend, but high groundwater levels continue to pose problems.
The Environment Agency says water levels are expected to rise again over the next few days as rainwater makes its way downstream, but thankfully not back up to the levels we've seen over the past week.
And further downstream, this, of course, is what has been protecting central London from flooding since 1982, the Thames Barrier. Originally designed to be raised once every 6 years, it's already been raised 41 times this winter. Another reminder we're experiencing the unexpected.
Okay, friends, and I just got a note from a BBC colleague who said, Steve, it's simply the Thames, not Thames, but Thames, and it just sounds like Thames sometimes. It's Thames. Okay, anyway, a good reporter, and thank you. I heard it even as she was pronouncing it correctly, according to Brother Ephraim, and it's their country and their river, so, okay, we will say it your way. Friends, there are new concerns about China's economy, prompting fears of another global shock.
China, but perhaps not as you'd recognise it. The first ever punk band in the city of Wuhan, complete with bagpipes. This is a country undergoing massive change, and that transformation accelerated in 2008 when China's government initiated the mother of all lending and investment booms to offset the economic shock which we in the West caused with our banking crisis.
I had no doubt that their strategy would be the kind of stimulus program they did. I did not imagine one on the scale and scope they pursued.
A £400 billion stimulus drove a building programme on a scale we haven't seen since Egypt's pharaohs. A new skyscraper every 5 days. More than 30 new airports. Metro systems underway in 25 cities. Over 6,000 miles of high-speed railway track and the 3 longest bridges in the world. It was an investment splurge financed with trillions of pounds of debt.
And friends, all of that is going to help the Gentiles rise. Friends, we're out of time for tonight. Thank you very much for joining me on this Monday evening. God willing, and TCDR, the creek don't rise, as I often say, as my grandparents would say. And again, I do have a natural Indian creek right down the hill behind me there. If it doesn't rise and flood us out like they're flooding over in the UK, and God willing, we'll be back again tomorrow evening, Tuesday night, for our next edition of Nightcast News related to the Bible and prophecy here on the program we call Nightcast. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, your host Stephen Lloyd saying,
you have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on COGTV.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the COGTV.org video archive.